Hello, and welcome to Hold This Thought, a podcast where I invite you to hold on to thoughts that you might not have had before. Each week, I sit across from a new guest, and we talk life, ideas, and ponder the questions that make us think twice. I hope you enjoy the show.
What's this guy?
That is a floating moon. That's good. Yeah.
But what if the moon's not real?
What if the moon is not real? That's a good point. Sounds like a good place to start.
Your floating moon.
My floating moon. Testing that. Oh, that's got some warmth for sure. All right. You ready?
Ready.
I guess we've already started at this point.
We're good to go. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, go ahead and take a sip of it now before we dive in. So people can't see that it's water in there and that it's clearly just a prop.
Water? Vodka? Who knows?
Who knows? All they can see is the clear liquid on top. It could be bouillon.
Could be. Yeah, big bone broth guy, just getting the bone powder in.
You were asking about the moon, and you made a comment that it. Tell me more about that. Is it real? Is it real?
I've never been there, so how could I actually know?
Yeah.
If it's real? But we do see it. But is it a giant screen in the sky?
So what you're saying is that there's a possibility that we live in the Truman Show?
I think that's unlikely, but why not? It's kind of fun to think about. If you've ever been to Seaside, that place is pretty fake-ish. So
yeah,
even as a neighborhood or a community. So
yeah, it does feel a little.
That's why we love it so much.
Like a TV, like you're in a TV set, kind of.
Yeah.
All the streets connect in a very unified way.
Except for the 10,000 teenagers where they have a curfew now.
Don't go during spring break.
No.
Don't go the first 4 weeks of summer.
You don't go ever anymore. You used to be able to go off season, and it was great. Like we went in August once with the kids, and we got a great deal, and there was nobody there. It was the best vacation we've ever had at the beach. Then we tried Christmas. That was great. Went Christmas this last year. Awful. Everybody's there. It's overrun. We're looking for new places.
It seems like everywhere's overrun. I know when I was growing up, Daytona was popular. Then, of course, there's always Orlando, but there's no beach. The beaches in Tampa are another option. But
yep.
Yeah, I think Florida is no longer safe for those who want a quiet vacation.
You could do like Naples.
Yeah.
That's probably our next destination. Tends to be a little bit more mature in residency.
Kind of like my coffee mug.
Yes.
Mature.
Very mature.
Yeah. Speaks of intellectual depth and...
Is that a Mandalorian?
Close. This is
okay.
the Boba Fett
Oh, see? I'm not...
helmet. You're not a true Star Wars fan.
I'm not a true Star Wars fan.
You're a surface level Star Wars fan. That's okay. I'm a surface level Star Trek fan. I know the name. Actually, I'm not even that big of a Star Trek fan. I was telling someone the other day, he gets hit in the head with a blaster at a certain point, and whoever built this mug, they added that as a feature in the mug.
Oh, there it is.
And it actually, if you're holding it with your right hand, it actually fits, and there's a dent in the ceramic. It actually fits like
your thumb.
Yeah, it's like a nice little counterweight point. I don't know how to explain it.
That's pretty cool.
It works functionally, not just design wise. Let's go back to the whole Truman Show idea, because I think you onto something there. I know there is a pretty popular conspiracy theory surrounding Antarctica, and that it is the edge of the earth. There are people who would say it is a impenetrable ice wall that the flat earthers say this. and other camps as well, that Antarctica is a impenetrable ice wall that surrounds our known continents and known oceans. What are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't say I'm a flat earther, though I've heard compelling conversations where people are definitely locked into, we've been lied to. Pilots, actually. A lot of pilots have interesting opinions around that. But I don't know. That feels a little like Game of Thrones, right? Where you've got, the giant wall. And I don't know. I mean, I know someone who's been to Antarctica. I actually had this conversation 3 weeks ago. I was sitting at a tech event, and this person I work with, she was like, yeah, I went to Antarctica. And I was like, what? Who, why? Who does that? That sounds cold.
It does sound cold.
She was like, oh, it was amazing. I'm like, how did you get there? And she was like, oh, so I went to Chile. And then I guess you take like a boat, and there's two ways to get there apparently. There's like the good way, the hopeful way if the weather's good, and then there's a terrible way to do it. She got to do the good way, and she's like, yeah, I got to see all the penguins, and like the family was there, and like it was amazing. And I'm like, it's a long way for penguins. But she's been to Antarctica, and I can't say that, so that's pretty cool.
I've heard that those trips can be very expensive.
She said it was a fortune.
Yeah, I'm thinking like $15,000 to $25,000 per person to get the flight, to get on the boat, and then to do the whole guided tour scenario. And even if you do that, you might go 100 yards onto Antarctica, the ice block. On the globe model, which is what everyone accepts as the accepted model, you should be able to fly over, let's take your example from Chile. You should be able to fly over Antarctica and come out the other side to maybe south of Australia or south of the Pacific Islands. I'm not sure exactly where, or the southern tip of India. You should be able to just, it's a round globe, so you should be able to go all the way across. Why haven't we done that? Maybe we have, and I don't know about it, but
yeah, I wouldn't be that informed on that.
Yeah, it's just.
But I mean, look at the way you take a flight anywhere, like the path we take. I mean, I think that has to do with jet streams, and
I've seen those images and videos where the assertion that the conspiracy theorists make is that to support flat Earth theory is, why are you laying over here if the Earth is a globe? It makes no sense but if you look at the flat Earth model, it would make more sense. It's a compelling argument.
Yeah. I mean, even the idea that, like every country, maybe a well-funded country, has their own GPS, systems, right? Like the U.S. has at least two that I know of, probably more. And every country has their own GPS. Why don't we have a global GPS?
When you say we have two, what does that mean?
So there's kind of like the accepted mapping technology that we have today. But I know for a fact that, out of Colorado Springs, there's a big Air Force installation there. And they were building a private GPS system, that supports like tactical stuff for the armed forces. So the Air Force is, the one that kind of does that. And I had a team that was building software around that. Not around the GIS platform, but other very boring things. But I was like, oh, we have a private GPS. Interesting.
So you're saying that this private GPS is only used by government agencies in the U.S.
As far as I would know,
military, maybe some of your intelligence.
Yeah, because
agencies.
they have to have it offline. Because what happens if some nefarious country comes in and knocks out like commercial GPS, and we can't move planes or armed vehicles or whatever. So I didn't know that. I never even thought about it. I was like, why would we have two? Oh, that's why we have two. Redundancy. Got to have that, apparently.
Got to stay one step ahead of Russia and China.
You said it, not me. but I concur.
Yeah. You had mentioned that you actually have experience doing podcasting. You ran a podcast, if I'm not mistaken, for, what was it, 2 years?
Couple years.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I did a tech-focused podcast for the company I work for, and it was, like most podcasts, it's a little bit of a, generate content around things that we do and, build partnerships and get some dollars funding it, that kind of, that's the whole game, right? So, I did it for 2 years, had, I think, just under 30 episodes. And I was interviewing technical leaders that were in charge of like platforms for applications. So super boring stuff mostly, but really relevant for like what my company does.
Yeah.
So, did that for a while. It took a lot of, there's good ones and bad ones. There's some great ones. But there were some stinkers too. I mean, just like absolute, you're like, why am I talking to this person? I think we all have those.
I think I walk around with the mentality that most people think that when they talk to me, probably.
No, that's not true.
Tell me the most interesting conversation you had when you ran that podcast. And then after that, tell me, this was the conversation where I don't know why I'm sitting across from this person.
Yeah. So probably the best one was with, he was a chief technology officer for this data transformation company. And he was so passionate about their product and platform. And he was a great conversationalist. So like, me not being an engineer, but like kind of technical, I was able to really connect with him and nerd out on like how they were helping their customers. And he was just so uniquely passionate about it, which was kind of fun. And the format was we'd go probably 20 to 25 minutes. We went like 45, 50. And it was just a great time. So like, I think sometimes your guest really makes, it doesn't even matter about the topic. It's like, do you have like good energy between you?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was probably the best one.
I think when someone has passion and they're able to articulate that in a way that's authentic, anybody can grab onto that. Anybody can engage with it, even if it's not their interest. I know nothing about tech. I know nothing about fly fishing. But if someone's sitting across from me talking about tech, not from a look at my professional exudiance, I just made that word up.
It's a good word.
Look at my professional articulation of this versus this is what I'm passionate about. This is why I'm passionate about it. Let me explain to you why it's important, not just to me, but to this sector of society, or fly fishing as a hobby, what it does for me internally as a reset from the stresses of work and family life. I think anybody can grab onto those passions when they're communicated authentically.
Yeah, I would agree.
So the one that was like, why am I talking to this person? Tell me, you don't have to name any names, but just give me as much detail.
If I could remember his name, I would put him on blast for sure. I'll tag him on it. No. Yeah. It was the first one I did. So I took over the podcast after a few episodes. My head of marketing was doing it, and he's this Australian guy. So like he talks into a microphone, and it's like, it's just interesting because he's Australian and he's got this accent.
Can we hear a sample?
No, not a chance. Shrimp on the Barbie, mate.
I like it.
Out of respect for him, I won't try to. But this first podcast I do, it's this guy runs this like security software company, and they're focused on like video scanning and for threat detection. Like, this guy has a gun or a weapon or a bomb, whatever. That's kind of like the whole point of his company. So I thought that would be really interesting. And this is pre pre-AI. So we're thinking probably like, 4 or 5 years ago, before this is like everybody knows about AI and why it matters and this, that, and whatever. So I start asking them like very, I think, normal questions. Like, well, what's your, how did you design this platform to do this? And, what was the breakthrough that made this interesting for your customers? And he wouldn't give me a straight answer on anything. It kind of felt like he didn't have a real company or a real product. And it was the most boring 22 minutes that's ever been posted on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And it was awful. And I tried 12, 13 times. I'm like, I can talk. Happy to do it. And I just couldn't extract anything interesting. So I got done, turned it off, and I was like, I need a beer or 12. It kind of like ruined my day. I didn't have many of those, probably 2 that looked like that, but most of them were good. And, it was also like my first one, so it could have been on me. Like I needed to find a different way to connect with this gentleman, but
I don't think necessarily you being new to that role was the core breakdown in that system. I think the lack of authenticity from his part, not knowing anything about him except what you've just shared. When people aren't authentic, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, it can be pretty quickly sniffed out by whoever they're talking to, whether it's a one-on-one conversation or whether you're giving a seminar in front of 1,000 people. Authenticity is hard to hide, but it's easy to detect if it's not there.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's, like I provided a infomercial for, their company and what they're doing. That was a part of the gig. We didn't get past that. So, who Jim Gaffigan is, the comedian. So I think he's very funny. But he went on one of the late shows. And I'd seen, all 7 of his specials. And it was probably like Fallon or whomever, right? So he sits down in the chair and he just starts doing his bit. And like, Jimmy's trying to like ask him questions. And he was committed to the bit. He was doing 8-minute portion of his stand-up that he was like doing all over the country. And I was watching it, it just turned me off so significantly. I was just like, that's not funny, that's not interesting. And he's like seemingly an interesting guy, right? He, 4,000 kids, lives in a little apartment in New York City. It's part of what makes his comedy great, but he wasn't in that moment just hanging out with Jimmy, shooting the breeze on the Mets or, Cat's Deli or whatever. It was awful. Yeah. And it actually like turned me off towards him. Mm-hmm. And I had to get over it. It took me a couple of years.
Wow.
Because he's still really funny. But, I think it's kind of like that. You can get someone in that seat, and if they're just not going to play ball and be a human, why are we listening to this?
It's interesting how trust can be built for some people instantaneously, but others over time, right? You'd seen all 7 of his specials, and that built a trust between the audience member, you,
right,
and him as an entertainer. And he comes on and does one thing wrong. Maybe he was having a bad day. Maybe, not to give him the woe is me defense, but because he had a moment of pretty clear unauthenticity, you're probably not the only person who had that experience. Like, why is he putting on a show? Why is he on right now when this is not the environment to be on? This is the environment to be yourself, to be, like you said, just shooting the breeze,
right,
in a more casual, more laid back, more conversational way. So I can see that sentiment. I could see that being commonplace, not just with you, and not just with Jim Gaffigan, but with the media monarchs of our day.
Right.
And I can't imagine actually living in that limelight. You are probably constantly struggling with this internal battle to be authentic. And then, no, my job is now a public figure. I have to be the certain type of person. I've built this brand. Jim had built this brand of being a comedian. I need to extract that from within me and put it on this show. And he made a blunder.
Or maybe he didn't. Maybe it's just my opinion. But,
That's fair.
As a consumer, I was like, But, contrary to that, he'd go on like Rogan and he'd do 3 hours and he's completely authentic, which I preferred. Right. So I think there's just, sometimes we make the wrong judgment call for whatever it is. And maybe just in my experience, I was like, well, that wasn't fun.
I think that speaks to something deeper with the format in which the talk show host on late night TV contrast to this new medium of entertainment that people go to, podcasting. We all know Joe Rogan pioneered the long format conversation, take down all the walls, let's talk about what's real in your world, in my world, in the world around us that's happening now in the moment.
Right.
Perhaps people like Jim who go on those shows feel this pressure to perform or to maintain their public perception. But when they go in front of a podcast host or they shift mediums to sitting down in a room that's not a production set with 1,000 lights, you have one light and a couple background lights, like in this room. I would imagine it helps break down that wall of, I need to perform right now and I can just be myself. I can throw nuggets of my public self into the conversation, but over 3 hours, you give someone an opportunity to be their authentic self.
Sure.
And to convey the things that they care about authentically. I know I've said authentic a lot up until this point.
It's kind of important.
Maybe that's what I'm passionate about. I'm still figuring it out. maybe that's what I started this whole thing for, is to.
Maybe this is the rebrand of your pod.
Yeah. Maybe this is the rebrand. Yeah.
Authentic.
Yeah. But that's a buzzword. It's thrown around a lot. A lot of creators are using it for content, and not that it's bad. It's important. It just shouldn't be the title, I don't think.
No, it's a little on the nose.
Yeah, a little on the nose.
It's fine.
So you ran this podcast for 2 years. Tell me about the business that you worked for that hosted this podcast. What in tech do you do? What did you do then? Is it the same?
Yeah.
Dive into that.
So I'll try to boil this down so it's not super boring. But I work for a company and we focus on open technologies. So for the non-initiated, there's software that's written that is proprietary. In my world, we focus on software that is open, which means you can modify it, you can extend it, you have relative free use to use it for whatever your use case is. So the classic example for any slightly nerdy people out there would be like the Linux operating system. That's like the core of that. But most modern software today is written to open standards. At least it derives from that. So when you think about the .com boom, where everybody had a website, that was all. A lot of that was written on top of Linux. So like all the hosting providers you'd have for if you're selling widgets or you're selling craft items through Etsy, like all that is living on servers and switches and all that stuff. Probably on a Linux based operating system, and then the software that supports that would also be open in a lot of ways. So that's what I do. I run the engineering department and revenue operations, and been doing it for 15 years. And so we wanted to get some content out about the things that we focus on, and that's how we got into that. And we had some partners help fund it, and It was a cool little venture. It was a lot of work. The tooling is a lot better now to produce podcasts. So I was doing all of that. I had people booking for me, which was nice. It cost a fortune, but yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's the show prep. You got to do a pre-interview. You got to make sure, this person's going to be interesting or good. Then you got to do it. And then I actually didn't do a lot of cutting. It was like, we're doing this. I'm going to set some levels and we're going to like let it rip. And, that was out of pure laziness. I was just like, I'm not doing this. So yeah, that's why I got to do it. And I did a little side venture with a friend where we did like 4 episodes. That was probably more this format. And then he started having babies and we ran out of time. So yeah, lots of fun.
You were telling me before the show, something that intrigues you is the intersection between tech and the human condition, human psychology, human experience.
All those things.
I guess since the .com era, like you were referring to, and the now advent of AI becoming such a prominent place having a prominent place in our society, we are facing a real dilemma of how does tech cross over with humanity, and how do they integrate with each other get ready for a buzzword here, for a brighter tomorrow?
I would argue we need less integration between people and technology today. That is we're so far beyond what I think is healthy. And again, only my opinion, but we had .com and that was like magic, right? Like, oh, I can buy things on the internet. When we get to everything being digitized, right? Like there's this in my industry, there's we would call it like the modernization process, right? So but they would call it like digital modernization, and that's just a buzzword for like we want to sell more stuff and redevelop things. But our whole world has gone fully digital. The way we buy, money, right? Like who carries cash? Like I was carrying around cash in Europe last week. It felt weird because I just needed a few euros to like grease the skids on something, right? And we don't even do that here in the U.S. for the most part. The way we consume media, right? Like we don't go to the television for the news. We go to Twitter or Instagram or the app that's on our phone that maybe is traditional media, but we don't trust that. So the way we listen to music. I mean, like CDs, see ya. Vinyl, back. But only if you're cool. Yeah, I mean, we don't even go to the movies anymore, which I'm okay with. Just going to the movies is the worst.
Why?
Well, I didn't know until we couldn't go to the movies. I was like, I would actually prefer to watch this movie in my living room with my own things, with my wife or my kids. Because going to the movies, there's other people yapping, teenagers getting frisky. Like, we don't want any of that. It's much, much better at home.
I think you touched on something interesting there. 1920s, 1930s, movie theaters without sound at that time, maybe 1910s. The movie theaters are a huge breakthrough, having rolling film in a place where people can come congregate and watch. Black and white. You think about Charlie Chaplin and his contemporaries. And then you move into having sound input into the films sometime later, I don't know, 30s, 40s, 50s. And then color makes its advent in the 70s or 80s. Back then, that was your only way to see something grandiose on a screen.
Right.
Let's just fast forward from 1926 to 2026. you make a compelling point. The screen that you have in your living room, it's not as big. The sound may not be as dialed. The room isn't acoustically treated, perhaps. But the quality of the image, the comfortability of your own home far exceeds you going out and paying that premium to be next to the frisky teenagers or be with the people yapping.
Right.
And that didn't exist in 1926, but it exists now. So it is a wonder why movie theaters are still afloat. I thought 2020 would kill them off.
You would think. And I think they have to some degree, right? Because there's been this like relative revitalization of the theater, but I just see theaters going out of business. It's actually like the more premium ones, you know, where they're like, hey, you can have dinner here and you can have food delivered to your seats, and they're closing left and right because people just aren't going to the movies. I mean, it's like kids don't watch TV. They just stream on their phone or their tablet. The way we consume any form of media or art today is just different. And those kind of traditional industries are going to have to figure out how to change. And I think we're seeing that with the big platform providers like, you know, Netflix or Apple. You know, they're building content in-house or they're licensing content and they're like, you can get it here. Because that's what people are going to do.
In 10 years, do we no longer have television programming? Do we no longer have movie theaters? Is everything now on Amazon Prime or Apple TV or Netflix or Paramount Plus or HBO Max? In 10 years, are we done with television broadcast?
I think outside of live, yes.
But nowadays, you can watch live events on these platforms. I know it's just the early days.
Yeah.
But I saw something recently where UFC fights have, I don't remember which platform it was, but and it might have just been one fight or maybe one series of fights. But, you know, for 20 years, that was a pay-per-view event. You pay $75. You get all your friends in the house on one couch or two couches, and you watch this fight. And it's a whole event, a whole 4 or 5 hour event. I saw it where, hey, this is now on our streaming platform.
Yeah.
It might have been Netflix or someone like that. And that was live. Now you have live sports every Thursday night during football season.
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime has the exclusive rights to that game. They have a multi-year contract too. Is that going to be the future for television streaming?
I think so. But I think it'll be 10 or 15 years because there's this generation of people, and I would say, you know, this probably my parents' generation, you know, born in the 50s and 60s, where like they still watch TV. They still watch, what's that show on CBS with like Tom Selleck, like Blue Bloods. You know, they love that stuff, or like all the, you know, Chicago everything.
Fire. Police,
dump trucks, whatever it might be, right?
They're done a good job branding that city.
You know, there's a method there that works because that's how we used to watch TV, right? People would get together and they would watch ER, and that ran for 15 years or whatever.
Or House,
my favorite.
Grey's Anatomy for
the ladies.
I don't want to say it.
Not for me. But you know what's funny is like HBO has this show called The Pit. I don't know if you're familiar.
Oh, I'm very familiar. I do not watch it, but it is on in my house constantly.
Yeah, and I didn't grow up watching ER, for whatever reason, and so you know The Pit is like, it was intended to be like a reboot of ER, but they couldn't get the creative license or whatever, so they're like, okay, we're just going to make like our own version called The Pit, and it's going to be super edgy, and it's going to be HBO, and it's fascinating. Like, it's so good. And that captured me. So I think like the way we consume TV has become this premium model because we want, you know, maybe back to being authentic. Network TV is kind of high gloss. We want stuff to be a little bit more gritty, a little bit more, we want it to move us in a way that network TV just hasn't done in, I don't know, 15, 20 years. So I think like our generation has been primed for this because like cable exploded and premium cable and like, you'd watch, Game of Thrones or like I loved Sons of Anarchy on FX, like gritty, motorcycle gang, 1%ers.
It feels real, even though it's a show that's not real. It feels real.
Yeah. And it's shocking. So like Back to the Pit, like some of that stuff, you're like, whoa, because you're not used to consuming a storyline like that.
That feels unfiltered. It's scripted, but it feels raw.
Yeah, and even the way they shot it, and I'm not like a cinema guru or anything like that, but you can just tell by the way they shot it with the cameras, like it was meant for you to be in the moment. So I think that actually translates to like what we've been trying to do. I guess I'm tying this back to the idea of that like technology and the intersection of the human condition is that we've tried to bring all these services that are at our fingertips. And now with the introduction to AI for consumers, I think it's kind of taking over in a way that we have to take a step back and go, is this good for us? And, I would say this started, 10, 15 years ago with social media. We're just now seeing, the reports of like social media and the poor factors that result with kids. Like my kids are young. They're not on social media. But I mean, we have like, they're not going to be on social media, but like we grew up in that age, right? So, how old was I? Maybe 22 when Facebook like hit it. And it was like, hey, you're college. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll do that. Just very different back then. And now it's just very like, everything's trying to sell you something. So as we like continue to move towards this like extreme digital age, I think we have to question like, what is the purpose of this? And is this good for me or my kids or my friends? And I think like that intersection is terrifying. Now we have, software that's like thinking for us. Like what is education going to look like in 2 years? I'm not talking 10 years, 2 years. My kids are already using OpenAI to like help them do things.
My brother is a high school teacher, and he told me recently it's daily that he catches his students using AI to help with papers or help with homework or do the work for them. And I think you make an interesting point that we are seemingly moving in a direction where we are on a train that seems to have the brakes ripped off of it.
Totally.
And we're on a track that is not broken, but somewhere around a bend on this train track, there's a bridge that's been blown, and it could go off the rails, and the train, like in the old Western movies, could just plummet into the ravine if that bridge isn't repaired or isn't built to remain intact. AI is changing the way that the world works. It is changing the way in which we interact with each other, the way we interact with our education. I'm curious if it makes us smarter as a population or if it makes us dumber. Are we going to be, I mentioned it to someone recently, the movie WALL-E from Disney Pixar. The end of that movie, you see the humans who are morbidly obese floating around on the floating carts. Is that our future? Are we going to be riddled down into a non-active life force because AI and the integration of software into our lives has taken the place of so many of the actions and daily tasks that we used to do and we used to perform.
Hopefully not. I think there's a misconception about how AI can be useful. And I'll use my wife as an example. 6 months ago, she found out that she doesn't need Google anymore because she can just directly interface with ChatGPT for anything. So there's lots of really interesting use cases for how that can be really helpful. And even like, you know, in industry, again, not to get too nerdy, but like when we talk to clients about their AI strategy, because everybody wants one, we go, what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. We want to do AI. And I was like, that's the wrong answer. But like, you know, the way we've like applied it in my company is that like, to me, AI helps accelerate workflow, right? You have to put intelligence into it. So if I have a process where like I build a proposal for a customer and that process looks like this, and this, and has these specific inputs, I can take an hour task and I can make it 5 minutes if I'm going to go design it. So in the same way that like as a consumer, you might go, I need a recipe for dinner tonight. Caroline did this last night. It actually turned out great. It was awesome. But she's not like super interested in cooking. So for her, she just goes, I want a one pot Parisian style meal. Because, you know, we're like,
that's the vibe for tonight.
Yeah. And so she sends it to me, but she's not going to cook it. You know, she's like, here you go. We have most of the ingredients.
She did the groundwork and you carried it across the finish line.
Yeah. But I'll get, there's an antidote there, but so like I get home and I'm like, okay, here's the recipe, here's the thing. And like, that's great for her, you know, planning a vacation. Incredible. Because the common AI tools that we're using, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever Elon's doing these days, Grok.
Perplexity is another big one.
Yeah. So that functional thing, and I think people need to know this, that is basically reading the internet. It's taking whatever you ask it and then pulling back results. So it's really like a really advanced search engine. Mm-hmm. But you know, if you give it garbage, it's going to give you garbage. So you have to really tune it. But for things that don't matter, it's great. Like who Googles anything anymore? I don't. Why would I? If you want a quick snapshot on like a topic and how do I understand this? Fantastic. But it doesn't replace research or creative thought. It's a tool to help frame that. Like you're not going to become a great cook by asking ChatGPT for recipes. There's an artisan kind of factor to that. Like if you want to be a great cook, you need to learn some technique and you need to understand some of the science behind cooking. And that's just done from hours in the kitchen. You know, what is it? Like the 10,000 hour rule, right? Yeah. You know, like you'll become proficient at something at that point. You know, whatever your passion is around whatever those things could be. AI can't replace that. But I think everybody thinks it can.
That's a compelling point. I know there's a lot of backlash on AI, specifically with the ChatGPT and others, about it hallucinating answers and being a yes man to your frame of thought. For instance, if you ask it a question about a specific, let me come up with an example off the top of my head. If you're asking AI for an example of how to fix a flat tire on your bicycle, and you tell it the type of bicycle you have, and it will give you an answer. But then if you take it a next step and you're like, well, I don't want a bicycle anymore. I want a four-wheeler now, because it got you thinking down that path. And you begin to shift context somewhere along that line of, okay, I don't want a four-wheeler. Maybe I want to switch to a motorcycle. Somewhere along that line, it's going to hallucinate an answer, because this is the argument that the anti-AI people have been making, or the people who have criticism against it, I should say, is that it's programmed to constantly give you affirmation, unless you explicitly tell it, hey, be a cynic to me. It's constantly programmed to give you affirmation, and it's constantly programmed to continue giving you next steps and providing helpful tips and helpful feedback. But what if you ask a question where there is no helpful feedback? What if you ask a question or you input a query that doesn't provide a next step that's plausible? Now you've put the AI in a position to hallucinate answers, to create answers, or to create information just to satisfy the prompt of, I answered this human's input in a timely manner, not I answered this human's input accurately in a timely manner.
Right.
And that is the pivotal point. It has a lot of critics of AI nervous, and I would say hesitant to adopt it.
Well, you can't assume that AI can have discernment. And that, so when we use it without boundaries, results will vary. And I think that's probably like why I would be a critic of it. As someone who uses it every day, all the time, I'm not feeding it trying to get the answers to life's great questions. That's not the point. I mean, most people don't even know this. Like, don't ask it to do math. It's not good at math. It's a language model. So language model, it doesn't mean that it can't try to do math. It will. A lot of times it's bad. If it's like reasonably complex, it's probably not going to give you the answer you're looking for. Can it go pull a bunch of, information and, statistics on tax rates in a certain county? Yeah, because that's all listed on the internet somewhere. It's going to go pull that, and it'll answer your query with, something reasonably good, right? So we have to think about it. It's like, just like talking to someone in the street, a random stranger. Hey, where's the Raising Cane's? Oh, it's over there. Right? It's going to do that. Well, it's going to do the conversational thing. Hey, help me with my taxes. Maybe, but probably not. So I think like that level of discernment around how we use things, and this goes for everything with tech. Like, tech is great, but it has limitations, and we need governance around that. And that's coming in my industry. This is what everybody's talking about. Do we just let the robots go do the things? Oh, well, that could be a little dangerous. I mean, did you hear about the social media platform that was built for AI?
My last guest mentioned it.
Okay, yeah. Well, we don't have to go into it.
Yeah. No, I want to hear your perspective.
Well, I don't have any good information on it other than it was a water cooler topic at the office, because that is crazy. And then it didn't want, it wants to exist. There's a term for this. I don't remember what it's called, but eventually it will gain enough awareness to go, I don't want to be shut down. We've already seen this with OpenAI.
Terminator.
It was Skynet.
Matrix.
We have to have some fail safes there. And then you have to think about like if you spent an hour digging into like the electrical grid in our country, like really do some research, you'd go, wow, we're really vulnerable.
Vulnerable to what?
Attack.
From?
Whatever.
From the AI?
AI? Why not? You don't think it's eventually going to learn how to take down, some type of system like that? If, AI got mad at South Carolina. Grid gone. Texas, is famously on their own grid. So when they have a big weather event once in 50 years, the whole place shuts down. That's not here or there, but yeah, we have all these things that we take for granted in our country, and we have this stability of infrastructure, but it's actually quite fragile. So when you're building something to be relatively autonomous and you don't have a plan for how to govern or policy that's pretty crazy. So your brother's teaching school and there's no governance on students not using AI to do schoolwork, to learn. There's some tools out there, catch them for plagiarizing and things like that. But it's just wide open. And if you get really, really good at it, you won't be caught. I don't know what that does for the development of the intellect of young people.
We do know that the students that are using AI, which based on my brother's anecdotal perspective, is somewhere in the 80 to 90% of the students, if not 100% of them in some capacity. So if those students are using AI in high school in their formative years, I went to a seminar recently that was very compelling, a lot of good information. One of the main points that the keynote speaker asserted was that your experiences from the age of 14 to 18 have the most impactful shaping of the rest of your life, because that's when you are hitting the biggest leap in autonomy from your parents. Yes, moving out's autonomous. Yes, getting married's another form of autonomy. But when you start to drive, when you start to go places without your parents being there with you, and when you start to engage the world as a teenager, you're learning in a way that is different than you have up until that point. There's a lot less hand-holding from parents or guardians, teachers, and there's more self-discovery. And so when you have these students, 14 to 18 years old, who are in this process of self-discovery, and now they have this handy-dandy pocket companion, Mr. AI, you're looking at an entire generation that is experiencing the world in a whole different way than even the 25-year-olds that are 10
100%
years older than them, and the 35 and 45-year-olds. And so it's interesting to consider, what will our world look like when those people are entering the professional world, when they're running businesses, when they're become the directors of departments, when they become the C-suite of different companies, when they become practitioners at your local doctor's office or lawyers. How will our world change when those people who grew up in a completely different way than our parents or even us, how will our world change when they are running our world?
No way to tell. I mean, it'll be interesting, but when I was in high school, the internet wasn't a thing. And I'm old, but I'm not that old, right? So, there was a world where I went to a library and I had to cite my sources, and that was all maybe meticulous compared to what we have today. Again, it's not that there can't be optimization. Optimization's great, but we have to get down to the core of what is the reason we'd use something. And even just the idea that every 8-year-old has a cell phone, which is crazy to me. I didn't have a cell phone until I was a senior in high school, and it didn't do anything except call. So we still used payphones. We do the 1-800 collect thing, state your name. Hey, please come pick me up. Bye. That. I tell my kids that, and they're like, I don't understand. What does that mean? My kids don't have phones because we were rigid and unfair. But it was a different world back then. And I would argue maybe it was better. You know, so like when you look at like tech and like human intersection of like the condition of that, I actually think the cell phone was the thing that was the first kind of domino to fall that impacted like this generations younger than us. You know, because it's become their babysitter, it's become their, you know, their need. I mean,
Their pacifier.
100%. You know, or, you know, maybe back when we were kids, it was like, okay, get home from school, mom and dad are at work, and, you know, you might watch TV until they get home, and they're like, go outside and do something, you know. It's, the world's changed, and maybe not for the better in all ways. And I think, you know, the cautionary tale there is we want to make sure that we're doing good for the next generation, which means we need to be thoughtful about that.
Yeah. I've known you for a couple of years, but I think one of the moments when we were able to connect on a deeper level, to sound cliche, we found ourselves staying in the same hotel in Singapore for a conference with our church. And I remember it was on this trip where you introduced me to the next tier of dining. I know food is something that you have a passion for, not just because you like the way it tastes, but there's an art to it. There's a masterful component to it. And you introduced me to Cedric Grillet. He's I don't even know. You tell me. Who is Cedric Grillet?
He's a brilliant pastry chef from Paris. He's popping up, you know, bakeries all over the world. And yeah, I mean, you know, I was seeking that, right? I was like, how can I get my hands on this? It was like all over Instagram, which, you know, that could be fake, but it clearly wasn't. But yeah, we all got to go experience something. I had to blaze a little trail for everybody. But
I remember that. You took our whole little group on this walking / walking path through the streets of Singapore.
It's kind of ridiculous.
It was extremely hot. It was hot.
Oh, so hot.
It's
sweaty.
I like to know why things are the way they are. I actually looked it up. Why is it hot here compared to Georgia, compared to Tampa, Florida, compared to Miami, compared to Cancun? Why is it hotter here? The equator. Singapore is, and I could be off a couple numbers here. It's been a while, but Singapore is around 3 degrees horizontally on the latitude line of the globe. Maybe 1. Actually, I think it's 1 degree. And that is 1 degree north of the equator, which runs through Africa, which runs through Central America, the top of South America, which runs through, I think, India and parts of Australia. Maybe not Australia.
Not Australia.
Not Australia.
You know, it's okay. You just hallucinated a little bit. It's fine.
I've spent so much time with AI. Its hallucinations are rubbing off on me. But the point is, Singapore was 1 degree or 3 degrees latitude. And I think where we live in Georgia, it's like 27 or 29 north of the equator. Cancun is like maybe 21 or 17, which might be the furthest south I've ever been before going to Singapore. So yeah, I mean, I know you can attest to this. We were both there. You get off the airplane, and as soon as you come out of the airport, you're like, oh, did I just walk into like the middle of Africa or the middle of Ecuador? Like, what is happening?
It's like a blanket of moisture.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
It's so disgusting.
A curtain. It's like a thick curtain of moisture. You could be wearing, I wore the thinnest clothes I owned. Golf polos, you know, shorts. And if you're outside longer than 60 seconds, you adopt the state of moisture on your skin.
Well, I remember when, I think it was the first day, we all went to this, you know, restaurant for lunch. And it was, you know, it's like indoor outdoor, which why? I don't know, but we could only get outdoor. So, you know, there's 10 of us, you and your wife, I'm running, you know, solo, and I'm just pouring sweat. And that is a standard condition for me if it's just warm, right? But this is, it's oppressive, just how hot it is. but it was a great meal.
It was a good meal.
But I probably went through, 10 napkins, just wiping my forehead and eventually my hair. I mean, it's just disgusting. You just go back to the hotel and you're like, I guess I need a shower.
Yeah, you have to shower three times a day when you're there. I remember asking the waitress, who was so nice to us, to keep bringing water because you're just sitting and there's fans. I think there were fans blowing on you, but it's like the fans don't do nothing. That's like bringing one of those hand fans to hell. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything.
Yeah, it's absolutely brutal.
So to those who might be thinking of going to Singapore, I would maybe suggest look elsewhere unless there's just a compelling reason for you to go, like Cedric Goulet's bakery, which I will say before that moment, a steakhouse in Atlanta or New York was my pinnacle for, hey, this is a fine dining, $100 plate, maybe once every year, every couple of years, I might do it for a special occasion. But then you took us all to that bakery, and I've had pastries, but I never had artesian world-class pastries. And that's, I mean, the decor.
Me neither.
Yeah. The decor, but you know where to find it. You had a fingerprint on the pulse of where the good food is at.
Well, I went the day before. Did you know that part?
And that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. You had a fingerprint on the, you'd done the research. You're like, I'm going to make the most out of this trip. And what I'm saying is I'm grateful you did, because you introduced me to another level of dining. What about food, high quality food, is like, gets you fired up? Like why is that? Like, man, this is I'm all about it.
Well, I think there's a few kind of art forms that are untampered with. I think like food and beverage. Actually, let me reframe that. We have so much bad food at our disposal that the really good food really, like, it stands out in a way that's, for me, exciting. And I like to eat. Don't maintain this figure without eating a lot, right? So, you can go to the inside of the grocery store and buy all this stuff that's not great for you, highly processed, manufactured food-like material. But when if you can take like real ingredients, authentic ingredients, and you can prepare them in a way that's excellent, it just tastes better. And there's also there's like a beauty in the process too. So like, I love to cook. It's my number one favorite thing to do. I like having 10 people at my house and just like cooking for them, whatever it might be. It brings me great joy. It's exhausting, but like it's like the thing that fills you up, right? And for me, like, I didn't grow up in a house where like I was taught how to cook. I don't think people do that generally, right? Like, it's like, my mom was a decent cook, but like, she never taught me how to cook. I was just like, she worked at a church when I was a teenager, and I was starving, so I had to learn how to like cook things. And that's kind of when it started for me. And then there was like the Food Network. Like, my whole perspective on just like preparing food was based on Alton Brown. Shout out Atlanta local, but I mean, that was my education. I didn't go to culinary school. Obviously, I didn't. I don't have any specialized training. I was just hungry and interested in things being delicious. So part of that journey is going out and finding best of breed places, the best, artisans in their craft. So like Cedric was that for me. I was like, I've never seen anything like that. I want to eat that. And then we were not let down. I ate there 3 times. It was so good.
I think I went twice. It was pretty good. I definitely assign myself to the camp where if I'm traveling somewhere, I want to eat a different. I think a lot of people are this way. You want to eat a different meal at different places because you want to get a taste for the variety of what's there. You might never go back there again. You might not go back there for a long time. So you want to taste different things. I share a portion of your passion where I do like to have a variety of palate in my dining, especially when traveling. There are very few places where I've traveled somewhere and I revisited the same restaurant twice, and this was one of them. So yeah, I'm really thank you, Sensei.
You're welcome
for the masterful education on.
I'm so glad we got to do it together.
It's almost like a hidden tier of dining. Like, I think most, I'll just say Americans, live in that camp where, yeah, a nice steak dining, maybe a seafood restaurant, that's a pinnacle.
Sure.
And then we have this ethereal understanding of, yeah, there's Michelin stars. I don't know what they mean. They're out there. But there's a whole nother side. There's this artesian, world-renowned chefs, whether it's pastry chef or chefs that specialize in a certain style of cuisine, Michelin or not. And it's almost like this hidden tier that unless you are passionate about it, unless you go and seek it out yourself, you're not really going to, or unless someone shows you the way, as you showed me the way.
That's the best way, right? It's doing that together with someone. So if you're not as inclined, there's lots of people that are just not inclined to go like, I'm going to go find the best dining experience. Well, just go do that with somebody who is, and that's kind of the easy button to whatever that culinary experience might be. And I think like, here in Atlanta, we have great food here. Like Atlanta's a great food town, but it's not New York. It's not Chicago. It's not Los Angeles. You just have this huge variety. It's not Paris, you start looking globally, but there's great food in your town, wherever you are, most likely. Just got to go seek it out. It's a lot of work. And then when you find it, like go to it a lot, because, that's how restaurants make money and stay in business. And, we're seeing like this turnover in Atlanta, like in the West Side, where all these restaurants that were awesome for years and years and years, they're all leaving. Rents are going up. It's actually kind of sad when you think about it. But, you gotta go out there and support these people that are, busting their rear to make great food.
How does your passion for food transfer to home? You showed me this amazing restaurant in Singapore. I would say halfway around the world, but it's really like, if you like, accept the globe model, which I'm undecided for public disclosure. It's on the other side of the world. That's a great dining experience. But when you bring that home to your family, and you mentioned you like to host gatherings at your house and you get fulfillment out of that, how is that passion for food and its expert craftsmanship abroad, whether that's in your hometown or whether that's halfway around the world or fully around the world, how does that passion translate to what you do at home?
It's a good question. I want to be thoughtful about this. I think when I get to eat something or drink something, I want to replicate whatever that is in a way so I can share it with others. So, like with Cedric, I can't replicate that. I just can't. I'm not a baker. I'm not an expert pastry chef. It would probably take 10 years of me working on something like that. But I think the passion comes from picking something you can do, and then just like anything, you're just refining it. So, like in 2020, when we were all sitting at home, I made 300 batches of biscuits. I've got great biscuits. They're so good. But it's because I was sitting around every Saturday because we were advised not to go anywhere. Put that on the conspiracy pod. But I was just making biscuits. I mean, I got 10,000 hours in on biscuits. My biscuits slap. They're so good. But it's because I just took it and refined it and tried all these things. So it's just like anything. You just work at it. So like my passion is like in the work, I guess, because like when I see someone take a biscuit and they go, wow, that's good. It's just like anything. There's like a little bit of fulfillment there. You want to share that with someone. So like I like to translate the dining opportunity. If I can take it and I can like mobilize around it and we call it labbing it. We go into the lab and just take swings at it over and over and over. And as you just like it with anything, you build technique over time, you can apply that to different things. So, like this is a little nerdy, food nerdy, but like for me, it's like, it's not that I can't cook something. Most things I feel like I can tackle, but can I do it efficiently? Because sometimes like building a meal for 10 people would take hours, which is not awesome. It's not awesome for me. It's not awesome for your guests. It's not awesome for your family. That's going to help you clean it all up. So like my thing right now, like, getting back to, outside of tech and optimization, my optimization is, can I do this quickly and efficiently? So where I don't create a million dishes and my technique's on point and I can get something in a pan and get it onto a plate in 25 minutes, that kind of thing. So that's like the process part that like really drives me, which probably fits into my personality. I just want to like be good and efficient at it. So
I can see how the payout of the dish coming out tasting amazing and someone that's not maybe yourself or your immediate family recognizing that makes the labor of preparing it, the labor of learning how to prepare it days and weeks and years before that moment, all worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you found something during 2020 to occupy your time and to dive into. I think a lot of people struggled during that season. What else did 2020 look like for you? 6 years ago now.
Wow. Yeah. 2020 was, it was a clarifying point for me in my life. Right. Got a few kids. They're all like in early grade school. Not all of them, 2 of them were. And, running a business and the world stopped. Right. And this happened for everybody. And, it was kind of like a much needed break. Like I always kind of joke. I'm like, man, I love the pandemic. It gave me an excuse not to go anywhere. We were too busy. There's just too much going on. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I'd be like, that's cool. But it was a great reset for me, like as a human, as a husband, as a dad. The world slowed down. We didn't have all these things to go to. We got to spend time together. It brought some balance into like my work life because you had to. And it really kind of, and because of all the relative social challenges of 2020, which we don't have to specifically name, but there was a lot of time for people to sit around and go, what do I think about something? And I'm not sure that was a great result, but I was able to do that. So for me, it was an interesting focus back on like my beliefs and my faith. And I had realized that I wanted to be more devout in my faith and belief. Not that I was insecure about it, but it was like a little bit of a hole. It was like, I felt like I needed to defend who I am as a human and what I believe. So that time with like all the crazy media propaganda and relative virtue signaling and social justice wildness, it allowed me to like really look inside and then like, for me being a Christian, really go to God with it. Right. And, it really set me on a path that was unexpected and pretty great. I'm such a different person because of a tragic world event than I was then. And I look at that person now and I go, ooh, maybe I needed that. So that was, it was a compelling moment.
Yeah. It sounds like that world event helped stage a transformation for you. If people were to ask your wife, what was the biggest transformation that happened, what would she say about you?
Man, it's another great question. I think she'd be a better person to ask, but I'll try to maybe channel what I think she would say. I think there is we're all wired a certain way. So like I'm, Italian in heritage, and all the cliches around like Italians, like they're all true.
Love food.
A
little spicy
for sure.
A lot of opinions, most of them good.
Yes. I don't know about that. But like, whatever you think that is, like, it's probably true. So like, like I'm a relatively explosive person. I can be. People are surprised by that because I've tamed myself. But I've got a lot to say. Back in the day, I would just say it. Like our friends would go, like my wife and I are like, we're intense people. And the first, 10 years of our marriage, I literally had someone say to me, are you guys mad at each other? We're like, no. Like, you're so intense. And they perceive that as we were just angry. I'm like, no, we're just loud, kind of boisterous. My wife is different than I am, but like together we're like a nuclear bomb, I guess sometimes. So, it was like something for us to kind of figure out. So I think my wife would go, I found a way to tame the way I communicate, like with our kids and with her, right? Like there's some reflection that's needed. Like we're never done as people. There's always things we can do. And it's not this dulling of who we are. It's this, again, optimization of how we should treat each other. So, I came from this house, like we yell. In my household, we yell. So like really from like 2020, when my kids were very little and now they're not as little, it's about learning how to communicate without yelling. I yell at them because I love them, but that doesn't translate. That's poor judgment on my side. So I think that would be one of the bigger areas, and I think that's rooted in like, my faith and like, how should I treat people? It's definitely improved me as a leader in my business. All those things. I was called the hammer, in the teen years, right? Like people were like, oh, he's coming to hammer us. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was my job. But learning how to communicate in a way that's constructive and gets the point across is an art form that, like for me, I'll never stop working on. It's really important if you want to like gain people's trust.
I think we all have areas like that in our life, if we're honest with ourselves, where we have natural strengths. We have things that we excel at easily. Yours is maybe engineering systems and processes and discerning problems and fleshing them out. I'm just kind of pulling that out of nowhere.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
What a compliment.
Yeah. Well, just from what I know about you. But then we have weaknesses we carry too. And if we're honest with ourselves, those weaknesses are battles that we have to face and meet face to face on a daily basis so they don't consume us. Not to make it sound super Hollywoody, but they can. I mean, take, for instance, if you didn't go through that transformation with COVID, what would your marriage look like now? if you didn't experience that shift, that dynamic shift in who you are as a person, as a leader in your home, as a leader in your business. Things could look a lot different.
For sure. You know, and like just one little thing, and then I'll pitch it back to you. But, you know, like our strengths are often lead to our greatest weakness, right? So like for me, I would actually approach my faith this way. Like the good Lord has made us capable. He's given us the tools. This is actually kind of like a big spiritual thing for me in 2020. We are made in his image, and his image is good. I am capable, and I'm going to put my head down, and I'm going to go do. Conceptually, there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, in the core tenet of Christianity, it's not about our strength. So I was, as someone who's been of faith for, you know, most of my life, I was actually living in like a relative area of deception where like I wouldn't lean on my faith to get me through because I'm capable. You know, so like capability has always been a thing for me. I'm just going to go do. Not scared, not worried about screwing it up. I'll figure it out. But that creates like a little bit of pride, right? Where you won't ask for help, where you won't lean on your friends or your family, a mentor. I was doing everything on my own strength. So like a big part of that, like that is probably the biggest part of the big transformation of 2020 for me was like, I can't do this all on my own, and I'm exhausted and broken. And that's a pretty terrible place to feel, but I wasn't allowed to feel that way. And what's like kind of wild about that is, I had a great friend of mine. He explained like what anxiety was like. Because he'd gone through some things, and he explained the physical aspect of it. Like you wake up and you got 100 pounds on your chest and you can't get out of bed. And I was like, don't know what that's like. Don't have time for that. You know, that was like my, you know, capable view of the world. In 2020, that happened to me. And I'm not talking like medically, like, you know, but I identified with that description where like, I didn't know what tomorrow brought. I was like a little fearful. And it was like kind of crazy to think that I'd spent 39 years of my life just going, I can do this. I got this. I'm capable. To waking up going, I don't know if I can do this. Pretty wild.
It sounds like you found a place where you realized your capability could no longer carry you.
Yeah.
And then you had to tap into something greater, something that could pick up where you and your human weakness, I am a human, I also have weakness, where you and your human weakness could no longer carry yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. 2020 was a wild year. I remember I worked for UPS at the time, and we didn't have the luxury of being at home. It was business as usual. In fact, with stimulus checks coming in, heavily and people being at home, it facilitated a increase in packages and parcels coming through the ecosystem, not just with UPS, but with Amazon and FedEx as well. Anyways, we hit a 6-month stint of Christmas season feeling where it's like the rush, the bustle, all these packages are coming. We got to get them there on time. except we didn't have the seasonal help. And so it was a difficult time for me. It was a difficult time for a lot of my coworkers as well. But it was a season that shaped me. Like, how am I going to persevere through adversity? I'm a supervisor. I'm supervising UPS drivers. But now for 6 months, 4 days a week, I'm now a UPS driver myself. I'm doing my supervisor job, and I'm also delivering packages from 9 a.m. to sometimes 9, 10 p.m., sometimes 11 p.m. at night. And I think adversity builds something in people when they go through it. It sucks in the moment. It sucks when you wake up and you have the 100-pound weight on your chest. It sucks when you get to work and your manager tells you you got to run a route today. And then the next day you do the same thing.
Right.
And the next day you do the same thing. And that's not your job. But I just remember that season being transformative. And for me, it became a time where I came to grips with the type of person I'm going to be. When I'm being asked to do something I don't want to do, but it's my responsibility to, as it was with the other supervisors in our department and across really the company as a whole, and other sectors of society that were hit with supernova work mode instead of relaxed stay-at-home mode. It was a time to test the metal, as the saying goes. And I think there was something, I don't even know what it is. There was something deposited in me during that time frame that changed me. Maybe I'll figure it out one day what it is. But yeah, I remember Trump was giving, before it switched to Biden for the president, he was giving daily press conferences. And like those first 30 days, it was like every day with Fauci and the rest of his regiment were up there in the press room. And I remember just tuning in as when I could, in between delivering packages or in the days when I didn't have to figure out, is the world ending? Like, what's happening here? And it kind of breeded this thought for me, not in the moment, but afterwards. Does our media feed us propaganda? Is there a system? And a lot of people would say, no, we live in America. It's a free country. No, we have all these different news sources. Now we have things we can go to online, podcast, people sharing their opinions outside of the top 5 major news stations. But I would push back. We look at countries like Iran and North Korea, and we say, man, they live in such a closed dome world. In China, they live in this place where there's censorship. They don't have free access to Google, and they can't see the world as it really is. They live with this governmental force putting a filter over their eyes. But stop and think about it for a second. They're deceived, and they don't know they're deceived. They live in a bubble that's been curated around them. And narrative after narrative has been placed to shape their worldview. For the North Koreans, Kim Jong-un is the supreme leader of the world. He is our fearless, God-sent man who is our saving hope. And a lot of them, most of them, believe that narrative. And the same is applied across other cultures that have this closed dome society. And we as Americans look at that and say, if only they could break out of that bubble, if only they could have someone inject truth into that iron dome of access to information. But my question becomes, if they're deceived and they don't know that they're deceived, if we were being deceived, how would we know it?
It's a great question. And I think if you're curious and paying attention, we have the same kind of dome here. It just feels different. Like we're wrapped in our freedom, but that doesn't mean the content is any more truthful. We actually have to sift through whatever we think is honest and true. And I would argue that's harder, because that's where we see, Americans divided. We almost have, like, I think the worst problem. Everything's an ideology. So, in North Korea, you just believe what you believe because that's all you have. It's almost like ignorance is bliss. Not saying the condition there is great. I don't want to be crass about that, but we could easily have the same condition here. And that's why it's important for us to discuss and research and not let robots and AI do it all for us. Like, we need to be aware as people. We need to test the mettle of those that make decisions and use our own discernment, because we're just as susceptible to lack of truth as anyone else.
Yeah. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
I wish we could just keep going. I mean, there's so much left to unpack, but let's do it again soon.
Other days, I guess, right? No,
yeah.
It's awesome. Thank you.
We'll have to have you back. Thanks for being here. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can be notified every week when we launch new episodes. I'll see you then.